Hi, everybody. It's Dr. Deborah, and welcome to Teens in Conversation. Today, we're going to take a little bit of a pivot just because of what we're dealing with in America and actually all over the world. Dr. Martin Luther King said that the day our lives begin and end is the day we become silent about things that matter. And it really does matter that Black people have been oppressed for over 400 years. It really does matter that we have been dehumanized in this society and that there is systemic racism. And so I wanted to bring on 4 awesome young ladies that are here to give us hope on today. And I want to introduce them to you. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, we're talking about race in America today. And we're going to start with Virginia. If we can just go around, you can all introduce yourselves. Just say your name and your age.
Hi, everyone. My name is Virginia Sacotingo, and I'm 17 years old.
All right.
Hi, my name is Helen Reese du Pont, and I am 17 years old.
Hi, I'm Alexandra Espinoza, and I'm 18 years old.
Hello, my name is Alilionia, and I'm 18 years old as well.
All right. Well, welcome you all to Teens in Conversation. I was so excited. I couldn't even sleep last night because I really wanted to hear your voices. We always talk about this generation, Gen Z, I think, right? Are you all Gen Z? Yeah. And so I just feel like the Lord has called you all for such a time as this. And so I'm going to start with Virginia.
Yes.
And asking you, I don't need to call the names, Tamir Rice, Michael Brown, it just goes on and on, Sandra Bland. But the most recent cases have been Ahmaud Arbery, Christian Cooper, who was, called on by Amy Cooper, no relation, trust me, and George Floyd. Tell me your thoughts on the most recent cases of just really dehumanizing Black people in America.
Right. So the very first time when I first saw, for example, George Floyd's murder, it didn't surprise me, but it shook me at how unsurprised I was about the news. Because it's like, okay, it's another one of my brothers and sister getting killed this time. And it was just like, I can't believe that I'm so numb to it. And it's crazy because that's the bad thing. Like, I'm so numb to it because I'm so used to it. And nobody should be used to seeing somebody be treated a certain way. So it really opened my eyes that in this generation, we have to get it together. We have to understand that we are all made in the image of God. And there has to be some sort of unity. There has to be some sort of discussion and understanding from one another. So when I heard about that, it just shook me and it told me like a change has to come immediately.
Amen. I like that. A change has to come. He wrote that, right? Sam Cooke.
Years
ago. A change is going to come, and I believe it is.
Yes, it was.
And that leads me into Helen. Helen, tell me, because I know that you have a brother as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me what you believe white privilege is, that mindset of whiteness, and if you have benefited from it, how you've benefited from it.
Yeah, so when I think about white privilege, I think about a system that I was born into that I might not necessarily put out myself, but it's something that I was born into and that I will stay within this system for my entire life. And it's not only knowing that the second I was born, I was put 10 steps ahead of someone else. It's also knowing that no matter what I face in my life, I won't face obstacles because of the color of my skin. And I think that's so important to look at and to recognize. And I've seen a lot of people recognizing that, but I also think we need to make a note of acting with the privilege that you have and acting upon and just trying to figure out ways that you can use the privileges that you were born into to benefit others and change the system that was made for you.
That's good. That's good. That's a message to the masses. Alex, sweetheart, tell me what images you saw growing up, not just of African Americans, but specifically African Americans, but also other nationalities. What images did you see in the media, television that kind of shaped your mindset?
Yeah. So in the media and television and everything that's like social media, stuff like that, I didn't really see a lot of African Americans or minorities in power. And that's kind of what like really struck me growing up, because it was only shown as in like white people in power. So because of that, you were led to believe that only white people are supposed to be in power or have the jurisdiction to be in power, right? And it's a little different for me because I grew up in a really diverse community. My elementary school only had like 12% white people. And so because of that, like everyone around me was a minority, and the teachers and like I was in Campania, and the leaders in Campania were all minorities too. And so it was different because what I was seeing in the media wasn't really reflecting the students or the teachers in my community. So it was kind of like, I couldn't really understand what was going on and why we weren't represented in everything else.
Wow.
And that really shaped the way I thought and my mindset right now, because it's obvious that there's a clear disproportion of power in this country and where power lies and what people have the power to change, right?
All right. That's amazing. I'm glad, I'm assuming, Alex, that made a difference for you. The fact that at Campania and you saw the different races and they were leaders versus, what we saw on television, the images that were put out there.
Exactly.
That's good. I wonder what would happen if you had a child that just saw the images on television.
Right.
And didn't have that other side.
You would have a child that's not as empathetic to like minority issues and what's happening right now, right? A lot of people can't understand the movement.
That's right. All right, Allie, that leads me to you. Tell me a little bit about why you thought it was important to come and speak on today about this issue that is so prevalent in our society of racism.
It's important because, especially at this age, to show people that just because we're young doesn't mean that we can't speak about something especially something that we're going through. So it's like showing people our age as well that you have a voice, that you can speak up about what you need to talk about, and especially for the greater good. And it also gave me like the option to help people awaken out of sleep that they have been in, like people who haven't acknowledged what we've been going through. It allows me to be able to speak. Hopefully I may not be able to change what they see, but I could at least plant a seed and allow them to grow with their own speed. And it just allows us to really show people that we're young, but we also have a voice. We see what's going on. You cannot blind us to what we see is going around us. So,
amen. Awesome. Virginia, tell me, in your high school or even in elementary school, I don't know, whenever in your life, in your young 17 years of life, tell me, have you ever witnessed any sort of racial profiling, I don't know, racism, dehumanization of you?
A personal experience or something that I have witnessed?
Personal experience from people being racist toward you.
Okay. So I remember the first time, I didn't understand this at all, but my teacher was African American, so she understood where this was going completely. I remember being in the second grade, and I just moved to Alexandra, Virginia, and I was coming from Woodbridge, and the part of Woodbridge that I was coming from, it was not as diverse as Alexandria, Virginia is. So I grew up around a lot of white kids. So when I came here, I had a Hispanic friend, and I actually thought she was my friend, but the whole time she was like talking bad about me, she was saying that I looked like a monkey. And if you look back in history, African Americans and monkeys were greatly compared. Like African Americans were seen as coming from monkeys. So at the time, I didn't understand. I was just like, that's not kind. Like, why would you say that? But now that I look back at it, I understood the anger that my teacher had, because it was like history repeating itself. And it was like, I can't believe in her mind, she's like, I can't believe that these children are actually taking from what their family is saying, from what, older people are saying. It's crazy. So when I first experienced that, I thought I was just being bullied from, by a little kid. But when you think about it, it's like history repeating itself. So now that I know about it, it did hurt me. I was like, wow, like she actually called me a monkey. But, it's the past. I forgive her. But these are conversations that you need to have. These are like things such as monkeys you have to bring up so that people know to not use those kind of words or use those kind of comparisons.
Tell me what you said you had an African-American teacher?
Yes, I did.
What did she say? How did she respond to that?
When she heard about it, she was like, what? Like she was trying to hold herself together, because she couldn't believe that this is coming from a second grader's mouth. So she was like, you need to apologize to Virginia because what you said was very wrong. And I can't remember quite clearly, but I think she did bring up like what she said was not right because of where it comes from.
So, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, my second grade teacher was strict. She put people on the spot. So
good.
Yeah.
Wow. So the thing is that there were a couple of studies done with teachers way back, and I won't go into it. It wasn't that far back, which is really discouraging. And they were shown African-American children, a white boy a black boy and a black girl, and then a white girl and a white boy. And they were asked to talk about, find the misbehavior in those children. And so they showed them, just a normal day. And then, they asked the white teachers, what behavior did you see that was, disparaging? And they pointed out the African-American boy. But the real underlying truth of the study was that nobody had misbehaved. They just had it in their mind. They went straight to the African-American child. And so I think sometimes when you talk about your teachers, if the teacher doesn't know, if the teacher isn't self-aware, then how does that behavior even get corrected?
Right.
You know what I mean? And it leads me also to parents. Helen, tell me how important of a role do parents play in raising children not to be racist, or another Amy Cooper?
Yeah, I think that parents play such a significant role in raising their children and like transferring the core values that they have into their children, which can be difficult, especially for parents who might not necessarily have grown up in a space where they had friends of color, they had friends who were Black, and they had friends that didn't look like them. And I think that it's imperative that parents also educate themselves before they educate their children and actually come to understand everything that's happening now, but also understanding our history more than the children are taught, because we aren't taught the kind of history that we need to be taught. Right. And that's where parents need to come in, and they need to have discussions with their children from a young age and try to get them to understand how this world works and how they need to be a better part of it.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, parents do play a crucial role. And because most of my work is helping to encourage and empower and uplift parents and families, I often get so frustrated when they say, I don't want to talk to my child about what is happening. I don't want to taint them to racism. And they're 8 years old. And I'm like, well, there is an age appropriate way to speak to your children. But if you don't speak to your children, the world certainly will. And I don't think we want that. So kudos to your mom and dad for raising you to have empathy and compassion and love for all races. Alexandra, tell me what Black Lives Matter means to you.
Yeah. So for me, Black Lives Matter is really important, not just because it's, a basic human right movement, but because a lot of the people affected by it are close friends or family members of close friends. And so I've seen how police brutality can affect an individual and then their community too. And so that's why that it's like a close thing too. But then it's also, to me, it just means like being a good person, right? Making sure that different, like minute differences like skin color don't affect the value of a person, right? Making sure that you can be empathetic and be compassionate and be an overall good person to everyone. Right. Wow. But then it's also like bridging that so that instead of just extending normal compassion to everyone, it's also understanding why you have to do that to certain minorities more, right? Because of the fact that there's 400 years of just disproportionate money, success, everything, right? Everything that's going on in the Black community, right? It's understanding why you have to show so much more compassion to that community because they've been hurting for so much longer.
Do you think the movement is going to be different now? I mean, we went through the 60s, do you think that the movement even feels different now? Because, and then if you do, Alex, tell me why.
Yeah, no, I definitely do think it feels different. I think that it's more, I think it's evolving. I think it's way more inclusive and more, it's becoming a lot more open to intersectionality. I feel like a lot of times in the past, the Black Lives Matter movement and just like the empowerment of Black lives in general has been sectioned off as sort of like a minority problem, right? But now we're more open to realizing this isn't just a minority problem, it's a people problem, right? It's a personal thing for everyone. And so because of that, the movement is becoming a lot more inclusive. And we see a lot of different people, a lot of more white people marching with us, protesting with us, right? And I think that's what's changing. I think that's what's going to be like the real changer and the real like indicating factor of actual change going on.
Awesome. Allie, tell me, because I know that you are big in leadership and you want to be a public speaker. Tell me right now, I feel like we're not only suffering from a medical pandemic, but also a cultural, social, and spiritual pandemic. Tell me a little bit about if you were in leadership, if you were number 45 right now, what would you be saying to the nation?
It's time. It's time to really make a change, not within as one whole, but as individuals. We can't come together when we all have problems ourselves. We can't expect to make too much of a change when we got individual problems that we got to deal with in order to even rise to the same frequency as one. So in order to even sound like one band, we got to make sure the energy, the frequency is right. Because that's what the band is frequency and energy. So we got to make sure we all get the communities. We got to dissect ourselves, our communities. We got to make sure that the baseline is correct and stable before we could build upon it. So before we can even get to the top, we got to make sure, the underlying statements, the things that we need to work on is correct before we could really get out there to actually expect something to really change. So we got to start with the community, Black community first, before we even march up there.
Start with ourselves first.
Yes, and by ourselves, yes.
Wow. And I've heard a lot of criticism too lately about the fact that there was a 77-year-old African-American man who another person in the Black community killed him for television. And so the problem that this young man had on Facebook, that he talked about Black Lives Matter, he said all Black lives matter, not just the ones you pick and choose, which is true. And I think that leads us to your point where you say, yes, Black lives matter. Yes, systemic racism has to go. Prejudice has to go. Bias has to go. But we ourselves, as an African American community, have to stop killing each other. First, yes. So I hear you. Yeah, start with ourselves as well. Virginia, tell me how we heal this nation, because I don't want to just talk about the problems. Everybody knows, if they've read any kind of literature, they know the problems that we've had over the years as not just African Americans, but Latinos, gay people, just a lot of people have been marginalized. But particularly because this conversation is on African Americans. Tell me, in your mind, in your spirit, in your wisdom, how can we heal this nation?
You know, the only way we can really heal this nation is if we realize who we are in Christ and where are we coming from. You know, we have a mighty God, and his name is Jesus. Jesus of forgiveness, Jesus of love, and he is our hope. And I think it starts with recognizing that, acknowledging Jesus, and prayer. There is power in prayer. I've seen it myself when I deal with things such as racism in school. And I just know that this is a cry out from God saying, hey, you all need me right now. And I really need you to talk to me, because the only way that we can get justice is if we know God and if we pray.
Amen. All right, out of the mouths of a 17-year-old. Okay, people, let's get it together. Helen, tell me, I know you're very active in the community. We've talked before. Tell me how you feel about the protests going on now, and have you been involved? If you have been involved, tell me why you thought it was important for you to be involved.
Yeah, so I think with the protesting, I think in itself, it is a way of waking up other individuals and making noise. And because this has been covered, the protesting has been going on for, I think it's probably going to carry on for multiple weeks, if not months. And it's happening across this world. It's not just in the United States here. Everyone is standing up. They're sacrificing what it might take to be outside and amongst thousands of people and stand up and say that this is not okay, and that we will not sit here and let history repeat itself over and over and over again. And that's why I had tried to convince my family to let us go to the protest in DC last weekend. And I've been to marches, I've been to rallies, but this is the most powerful thing that I've ever witnessed, just because of how many people were out there and how many people were willing to listen and to amplify other voices instead of taking up their own space. Because I think a lot of times what we think about is, in this movement, it is not a movement for people to, especially people that look like me, to stand up and take space and to claim their own voice, but to amplify the voices of others who have been marginalized for thousands of years. And I think that we have to take this time to understand and to listen. And that's why going out there and protesting, it's not just walking along the streets. It's listening to people who are telling you that their lives matter and that they need people to stand up with them and take action against this country.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Alexandra, tell me, what did you learn in school? Because I'm really interested about education and what is being shown to you and to our children that are younger than you are. So I grew up in the village mentality. It takes a village to raise all of our children. So even if the books didn't show what the contributions were of African Americans, we had grandparents and great-grandparents in the community that came together to tell us about our history. People will never forget the Holocaust. People want to forget slavery. That's a problem. So talk to me about that.
Yeah. In my schooling, elementary school, even in my diverse community, I still learned almost like little to nothing about African American history, which is appalling. Even in my later years in high school, I've always been in like honors classes or advanced placement classes. And even in those classes, nothing about African American history. You have maybe a day about, Malcolm X or Martin Luther King Jr. and a little bit about the Harlem Renaissance, but nothing really. And I think your point about the Holocaust is entirely valid. I spent a week maybe learning about the Holocaust, but no time learning about anything of the communities around me. And the communities that make up the majority of my school. It's crazy how so many people can be part of a community, but then know nothing about the community. And so because of that, I think that's like relying on communities to teach community was really important. But for me, because I'm from Peru, so my mom is an immigrant worker, always had to, and because we came here from another country, we don't have a lot of family here. So for me, it was really hard to learn about history through family members. So I relied on like teachers and their outside of school hours, right? Like maybe, like we have an amazing teacher, Ms. Kiak, who would talk about African American history, but through different lenses, so that we can't miss out on history. But it's crazy how you have to find a way to teach history, not through school, right? You have to find another way around it, and that's something that has to be fixed.
Wow. Yes, it does need to be fixed. Ali, tell me, because again, this is about creating solutions, okay? Tell me what you think at this point, the police department, what changes can they make that can move the needle to another level?
See, that's another part that we also need to understand how deep it goes. The cops are also, I feel like they are also in it as well. So I feel like, as unrealistic as it may sound, I feel like we need to find not like a whole new police department, but to find another way how to get the right people. Because the people who are in power, they're the ones who might fire one, but might hire another one that could do the same exact thing. I feel like we need to put people who actually want justice in the power that actually could change something in the police department itself, as well as putting also people of color in the police department. So I feel like, because right now where we at, the people of color who are in the department, they also have information as well of like what's going around them, but they're not actually helping us. I feel like if we are able to actually find people who actually can help us and put them in a position where they can, I feel like the police department could be way better than how it is right now.
Wow. Okay. You all are doing such a great job. Closing questions. Now, audience, they have no idea what these questions are. So I'm going to start with you, Ali. They are quotes taken from mostly African American. I think I did do African American. Yes, African American famous poets or professors. But this one is a boxer, Muhammad Ali. No pun intended. Muhammad Ali said, "Impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world they've been given than to explore the power they have to change it." What does that mean to you?
I feel like that means people are so comfortable where they at, not realizing that it's so much more to the world, so much more to life that you could do. But because people got so comfortable where they at, it's kind of scary, especially when it's unknown. Even if you know it's good, it's scared to go somewhere where you don't know too much about it, what to do, how to regulate. So I just feel like people are so comfortable in their lives that they don't want to get out there and speak about something that could change not only yourself, but the community, the people around you, the world itself. So I feel like people just need to get out the comfortability and actually do something, change something about them, themselves, and people around them.
Yeah. Comfort zones, right, are not healthy. People think they're healthy. They're just familiar. That's all. They're just familiar. Thank you for that. Alex, James Baldwin said, "Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it's faced." What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so for me, that kind of means like what we're doing right now, right? It's uncertain if we can change a whole system of oppression, right? Especially in, we've been marching for a week or something. It's really new. I mean, it's not new, but all of the progress that we've been inciting right now, it's new. And so because of that, of course, it's going to be, we don't know if we can change everything. We hope we will, but we'll never know if we don't actually try. So even like in this level, right, having a conversation with between us, having a conversation between our families and our community, all of that is really going to show us if we can actually change this, if we can actually overcome this. Because without these conversations about starting things, we will never actually be able to overcome everything.
Good. Thank you for that. Helen, the great mystic and theologian, Dr. Howard Thurman said, "There are two questions that we have to ask ourselves. The first is, where am I going? And the second is, who is going with me?" Helen. Where are you going, and who is going with you?
I think to translate that into the movement happening right now, I think a lot of people have to ask themselves not only what their intentions are, but what they're willing to sacrifice in order to create a more just society and to create a place where everyone can live in a world where they don't have to fear for their lives.
Amen. Thank you. And Virginia, in Nelson Mandela's book, A Long Walk to Freedom, he writes, "No one is born hating another person because of the color of their skin or his background or his religion. People must learn to hate. And if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite." What does that mean to you?
Wow, I love Nelson Mandela, and I also watched that part. Well, I read it in his book, and I think that that is so powerful and so important right now to know that racism is taught. When you see someone acting rude or negative towards someone else, it's because something was already registered in your mind. So it's important that we take a step back and realize, oh, this isn't right. The way I'm thinking is not right. And seek ways to love people, find what works for people. So it's important that we understand that it is possible to change your views. It's possible to love people. If you can hate, you can most definitely love. So I think what Nelson Mandela is saying is that it's important that we come to a point where we don't accept hate, but we turn away from that and start to look towards love.
Mm-mm. I told you they would be fantastic, didn't I? I am so proud of you four girl power ladies. Yes. I'm looking to see wonderful things happen in your lives. I'm looking to see you affect change. Okay, maybe one of you will be the first president that's a woman. I mean, it's not too far from now. We'll see. But I'm just so proud, and thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your voices. And more importantly, thank you so much for making a difference in the lives of people all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless you too.
God bless you too.
These young people give me hope. They give me hope that together we can one day be united as a people, not worrying about the color of our skin, but like Dr. Martin Luther King said, the content of our character. But we as a nation have got to humble ourselves. We have got to repent. And we have got to not just take a knee, but get on our knees and pray to heal the hearts, the minds, and the souls of this nation. That's your charge on today. I want you to leave me a comment, share your stories, but more importantly, go out and do something to change this world. This is Teens in Conversation. I'm Dr. Deborah Tillman, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.